So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Devon Page, who's founder at Brainstorm Club. So, firstly, Devon, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Brainstorm Club, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and really happy to be here. And as we had a little bit of a discussion beforehand, really glad to be talking about businesses and the ecosystem, particularly in the north as well.
Brilliant.
Businesses. So yes, I am one of those businesses. So I'm the founder of Brainstorm Club, and we help to automate processes between sales and marketing teams. What that looks like is for mid-level marketers, we help them to reduce a lot of their manual tasks that are causing them headaches. We help them to prove their ROI to leadership, and we help them to build better relationships with sales and marketing teams through improving some of those processes. So that's things like automating deal stages inside of CRMs, whether that's improving the customer experience with messaging, or even just trying to do some of that manual organization work on things like Google Drive and making that automatic to improve your workflows. We're there to try and champion those mid-level marketers.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So what would make what would an A grade client look like for you? What sort of business or person would you work best with?
Sure, I don't tend to grade the clients. They're all
Okay.
absolutely fantastic, and
Good answer.
there's
If
yeah,
if you had your
a
perfect
diplomat,
client, what would they look
a diplomat's answer. Uh,
like?
I came across again, not to differentiate, but another perfect client I had this week, and I actually said in the email back to her, I wish I could review you because of how enjoyable this experience has been, but I did ask her to review me as well. I guess the ideal client fits into the profile of what I'm looking for, which is those mid-level marketers in small, medium-sized businesses. They've got a huge, task on their hands. They don't really have a large team, or even sometimes a team at all,
Yes.
and they have to do more with less, essentially. We and I really act as a partner for those types of individuals for the reasons I've mentioned already about proving ROI and improving processes and relationships in the businesses. So to have somebody in one of those positions that's really feeling that pain and burnout, to be able to support them and help them to achieve what they want to in the business, to get promotions, and to move on with their professional careers, for them to go back home and feel like they've done a good day's work, and to be working and to know that in the background all those manual tasks are being taken care of, and also for them just to be able to do what they thought they were going to do when they signed up to the business, strategic work, creative work, not getting stuck in the weeds.
Brilliant. I really get that. There's very few people I meet in what I do that. So my proposition to especially business owners and leaders, but to execs throughout the business is everyone should have more than enough time. And yet I rarely meet anybody that's even got enough time.
Yeah, and it's the issue with artificial intelligence now, and it's kind of difficult because I operate in this space, but there's that idea of because artificial intelligence and automation processes can improve efficiency. It's that idea of more, 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 more. You have these tools that you can pack more in. I do not feel like that's the case at all. By using these tools, you should then be replacing that with that creative, strategic work, that
Yes.
time to think and actually develop new innovative things, not cram more work in.
Absolutely, more than enough time to think. And honestly, the number of business leaders I talk to say, "Look, your job is to spend a big bunch of time thinking," and they go, "You're joking." It's like you're talking a different language, and it's like, but without that strategic thinking, we're just going to we'll be running really fast, which is most of what they're doing. But how do they go in the right direction if they haven't got a chance to put their head up and just see, are we running off a cliff or into a hole or something? So brilliant. So that's really going to help people get get more with less, but more importantly, have more time.
And it's something we've mentioned already before this. It's about being human, and it's
Yep.
about using this technology to enable us to be more human and
Yep.
to automate the things that people don't require to have a human element to it. So yeah, it's all about that thinking and being present rather than having to do some of these tasks which are honestly quite easily automated.
Yeah, I love it. I've described probably early doors. I still describe it as this, but I said I think AI is brilliant. I said it's a bit like having a bunch of really clever people, and you can ask them to go and do something, and they go and do something pretty well. They come back and they give it to you very quickly because that's part of the what it's able to do. And then you go, well, that's really great, but would you mind just adapting it slightly to do this? And they go, yes, of course we can, rather than because you can imagine having people doing that. It's like, well, I've just put all my heart and soul into that. Now you're telling me to do it slightly differently. But that's what you can get, isn't it? And
Well, I'll tell you what, the biggest issue, and you gave the example perfectly there, is AI, at least generative text, likes to agree with you far too often. And again, that's the
ah,
kind of away from the human element of, as people, we can agree or disagree with things, and hopefully we feel empowered to be able to share that. With AI, sometimes that's not always the case. And
interesting.
having somebody agree with you on everything that you're doing, and I'm sure we'll get onto this at some point around, mentors and other people that we've worked with, but having somebody that agrees with you on everything, that's not a good thing. It's not good.
Has limited value because then you're getting what you only get the same point of view. 100%. I was going to say that's exactly a big part of coaching is not to directly disagree, but to challenge. And what's
Mhm.
the basis of that thought? What's making you think like that? What if we thought differently? What would it look like? Brilliant. No, really, that's really interesting. So Devon, keen to know a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
Yeah, so I've been asked a couple of times around entrepreneurship, and I would consider myself to be a entrepreneur in every different color that you could possibly describe one as. So my journey really started in a primary school. I've always been on the lookout for creating propositions, and when I was in primary school, I saw lots of different opportunities. One of those was in preparing and selling conkers, which I'm
Right.
sure lots of
Brilliant.
people did when they were younger as well. So, whether to put them in vinegar, the right covering to put on them to make them stronger,
Absolutely.
um, drill a hole through it, put some string on it. Obviously, the stronger conkers win out best. So, people that just go and find the one on the ground are going to lose those conker fights, whereas one prepared by Devon, yours truly, is a winning conker and is worth some money.
Brilliant. So bake or not bake? Because that was the other. It was the vinegar and it was baking. That's all we used to do. Is that
Exactly. I mean, I can't remember now. A mixture. The process comes in the building up of them.
absolutely, absolutely brilliant? Oh, wonderful. So you've been entrepreneur. Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, so I mean, it continued. So another example was again in primary school. On the lunch break, the early lunch break, they used to do shortbread biscuits, and they were gorgeous, really, really nice. And they'd all sell out for lunchtime, so you couldn't have any at lunch. And I don't know if you're like me, but I love having a sweet treat after something like after having something savory. I have to have something sweet. So I'd buy a bulk of shortbread biscuits on the morning lunch and then sell them at a premium on the lunch break.
Brilliant.
but this comes down to the story of my first. I say a failure, but I've never ever considered something not going how you wanted to be a failure.
No,
Um, I stored my conkers and my shortbreads in the same box. Now, I guess somebody in supply chain would tell me this was a mistake, and it was. So I had my conker supply and my shortbread supply stored in the same place. Now, conkers have a lot of moisture, and,
yeah,
and shortbread likes to absorb that moisture. So on one day, I came back to my supply, and it was a mush, horrible. It smelled. It was disgusting, and I had to obviously throw this out. And the learning there was, I guess, keep your stock in suitable conditions and separate if they need to.
brilliant. What a great story.
So the journey went from there, really. In secondary school, I tried to start a newspaper. As well, in secondary school, I kind of started a technology and promotion help website alongside Twitter at the time. And that went okay for somebody who was in secondary school having to juggle studies and exams. I did have to stop because of the exam period coming up, and I managed to sell the website and the business for a lot of money as somebody who was a teenager. I think it was somewhere between like £800, something like that. But as a teenager, that was I felt like quite a lot of money to me. And like I said, for me, it's just always been a part of who I am, that I like to spot these opportunities and try to, offer something where there's a clear need for it. After leaving secondary school, I continued to work with marketing clients. So from about 14, I was had marketing clients. So a lot of
Right.
it was like advertising based websites. I've always stayed in the marketing industry after then. I went left school, did an apprenticeship, business administration apprenticeship for a charity that I was doing work with. And then from there, I worked in outbound advertising sales, inbound advertising sales, marketing operations, worked for a large agency on multi-million pound wider public sector government campaigns like the Electoral Commission, Financial Services Compensation Scheme, charities and universities. So that was a great experience. I've worked in-house as a marketing manager for an IT consultancy. And then COVID happened. And during COVID, and I've always kept my marketing clients alongside working full time as well. During COVID, when I was furloughed, I began to then increase the amount of work that I was doing with my own clients. I actually managed to take a furniture retailer from nothing to over £1 million in revenue in under 12 months
Wow.
with just myself and the person that was doing the sales and delivery side.
Wow.
And I handled all the marketing side for that. So
Wow.
that led me to leave the job that I was currently in. And since then, kind of working full time on my own business, I've also been teaching as well. So I started teaching digital marketing at Huddersfield University,
Right.
and then I've moved to doing it at Leeds Trinity University as well now. So I work on the digital marketer degree apprenticeships, which is really exciting because these apprentices are actually inside of organizations doing some fantastic work and always keeping me on my toes and connected to what's actually happening on the ground. So yeah, it's quite interesting because these mid to early level marketers that I work with, I also just speak to on a daily basis and understand their issues. And so me doing Brainstorm Club and actually providing these services, but also me as an individual loves teaching and teaching these aspiring marketers. And for me, it all connects really nicely together as a kind of life cycle ecosystem.
Brilliant. Brilliant. What an interesting trajectory. And so having founded Brainstorm Club, and as you've grown it, what are some of the issues and challenges that you've had to overcome over that
Yeah,
time?
I mean it's not been plain sailing, and if you ever get an answer from somebody that is, they are lying.
Agreed.
Um, So I registered the company in 2012. So my
Right.
birthday is in November, and legally to register a business you have to be 18. So my 18th birthday was in November. I registered the business in December, and that's why the business has existed on Companies House for so long.
Oh my goodness.
Is that the first opportunity I had? I registered the business. I did business BTEC when I was in secondary school and realized the importance of having that separation from individual liability and company liability. So I took the opportunity to register the business as early as possible. Because of that, Brainstorm Club is a really wacky journey to get to where it has been now. Because up until I would say this past year, my business has been me. And I've actually had apprentices work for me, and I have, a team of freelancers and other people that I work with. But it's been a very like me orientated business. It started as everything under the roof in terms of marketing, websites, advertising, emails, CRM, the whole lot. And I've gained lots and lots of experience, worked with lots of businesses, achieved some fantastic results. And I came to reflect last year, and I thought, I'm doing everything that I wanted to do, but I'm not really feeling fulfilled. And I,
Right.
and I realized that a lot of the things that I like doing, such as helping marketers, and actually I didn't mention this, but in my master's dissertation, so I did a master's as well. I didn't do an undergraduate degree. Went straight on to do a master's
Right.
whilst I was working. I did it on the integration between sales and marketing teams and their relationships. Um, so what I found is in my interests is I really like bringing groups of people together.
Yeah.
I really like this interface between sales and marketing
Yeah.
teams. I know a lot about marketers and their issues that they're facing, and I'm quite a techie person. I do love using all of these tools, and I like helping small, medium businesses compete against some of their larger counterparts by enabling them to use the tools that they use in a much more of a easy to adopt way.
Yep.
And so, Brainstorm Club is a combination of each of those different elements. I'm helping marketers work better with their sales counterparts. I'm bringing in technology and processes to help them to scale without proportionally having to increase their headcounts. There's teaching involved in it, so I do a lot of workshops. I do a lot of teaching on how to use the tools that I use, and from that perspective, in a place now where I have a really strong proposition and it's validated and people really like it. I'm working in an area that I personally feel really excited and motivated towards. And I just want to help other businesses to be able to, I guess, achieve some of the same things with AI and automation.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Well, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, so hopefully one or two,
There is plenty of people out there, yes.
hopefully one or two might be watching. So hopefully we'll they should be getting in touch with you because that's clearly the passion for what you do comes through very strongly. So and for me, that's the most important thing is working with people with passion about what they do.
I
Um,
always like to work with no-brainers, Chris. Like if it takes a lot of thought to like know whether or not it's worthwhile, that for me like has some like warning like red
yeah.
flags to me. I like to think that when people are thinking about a proposition, really it's a no-brainer.
I often say to people, I mean, it's one of the things I do a certain amount of sales, well, a fair bit of sales training actually, and sales coaching as
Mm.
part of what I do. But I often say to people, and I say this to people that say this to me, is that when they go, "Okay, we just need to think about it," and I just say, "Well, yeah, but just so we're clear, the only things you'll be thinking about are reasons not to do this." So
Yeah.
we didn't want to do it. I just want to think about it. Yeah. So what you're going to do is to go from a point when you want to do this to a point where you probably don't, and that's your choice. If that's what you want to do, great. Otherwise, let's at least put something in place that's going to move us forward. But yeah, no, it's funny, isn't it? It's such a funny thing. I think sales and marketing in terms of how it affects people and people's different reactions to different approaches.
Yeah, sure. And there's some people that really like that really clear, this is how much it costs, this is what you're getting, and they really enjoy that. And there's other people that just need to be a little bit more, have a little bit of courting,
Yeah,
um, speak to them multiple times, make them feel at ease. And I'm like, I'm there for both those sorts of people. And, not one approach is wrong or the other.
100%.
Different people, different approaches.
Couldn't agree more. And it's that point, and I remember I can even visualize them right now. One or two people, they won't do a deal unless they got a deal, if that makes sense. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a huge amount, it could be a tiny, tiny little thing, but they have
Yeah.
to have moved slightly towards them for the deal, because there's always like
Yeah.
a personal pride thing, if that makes sense.
See, from my marketing perspective, every opportunity to speak to a potential client is a huge win.
Yep,
If not a sale, it's really valuable like information to help to improve the product and service. So
yep.
any conversation, any interaction is super valuable. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a target to hit in terms of sales, then I can see you're not valuing that as much. But from a marketing perspective, those conversations are gold.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And so, whether it's through the challenges or wins you've had, what are some of the biggest learnings you've got about building and growing a business?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple. One of them is make difficult decisions sooner. And you've probably heard this so many times, and you can probably say it to be blue in the face, and it's still always difficult. And it's a difficult decision, for a reason. So, sort of midway in my journey, I took on an apprentice, and she was absolutely fantastic. She got a distinction in her apprenticeship. It really helped the business. And that was a fantastic experience, and I definitely recommend businesses to consider taking on apprentices. And when this apprentice came to the end of the program, we suffered quite a large client loss. And I loved working with this apprentice. We had a really good relationship, and I wanted to keep them on for as long as possible. And actually, they were part of this journey as well. So they knew about the client loss. I was very open and very transparent during the process. And I guess because of that relationship, I wanted them to stay on for as long as possible. And potentially from a financial business perspective, that probably lasted for a bit longer than it needed to. I was very happy in the end because they were able to move on to a different opportunity and it worked for them. But it was a difficult decision to make. And I think given that decision this time around, I'd probably make the decision for them to leave a little bit sooner with the same transparency and openness as I had done previously. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, difficult decisions like that, you just want to try to, in your head, delay them for as long as possible because you think there's going to be some sort of like magic thing that's going to happen. It's just around the corner. If the business is struggling, I've got all these deals up, next week it's going to be better or the week after. And actually, you do actually need to sit down and make those decisions sometimes.
Yeah. No, a really important point is putting things off. We have a description, we call it problems on planet Earth, and we say if you run away from a problem um, around the world, ultimately come back to it, and by which time it's bigger, and it's the quicker you deal with it. So I completely get that, and I think we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Well, I'm going to tie this in together because I had a separate, another example, and I think it does tie into this question as well. I I do not have a single person that I would attribute to, I guess, drastically changing like my direction or anything. And partly it's because, like I said, I really value the conversations that I have with potential
Yes.
clients and everyday people.
Yes.
And when I'm talking to them, I'm always testing different ways of saying things, new examples, and then just trying to gauge, what their feedback is, even
Yep.
if they're not kind of directly giving me that feedback. And it's the same in my personal life as well, I guess. I just take this approach of there's always something to learn from somebody, even if that's you've had a bad experience, there's something to learn there. Or you've seen somebody, observed somebody doing something really good, and you've seen it, and that's made you feel good, and you want to do things like that yourself as well. I was really lucky in a way when I was younger because I got really involved in the youth service, and I had some really good role models that were youth workers at the time when I was doing that. And although some of them have their own foibles, so to speak, and I wouldn't say that one individual I sort of like put above the rest and I thought was the leading star. But a lot of them did lots of things that I thought, oh, that's really good. I'd like to be like that as a person. And I guess that's kind of followed me through in life as well. I do feel like I'm kind of like an unfinished piece of stone, always getting chipped away and always being refined and never really being in a kind of a perfect state. And actually, I look at a lot of people who, when you ask them the question and they mention these really famous, really high profile individuals, and I look at the same individuals and I go, I don't I don't see it. And I think it's because I don't know them as individuals, so I can't really say whether or not there's elements that I like or elements that I don't like. There's what I see publicly, but I'm always aware that that is something that's been orchestrated. So you can never really be too sure. So where that links into the business advice is don't be afraid to ask for help, to seek help, and to
Yeah.
accept help when it's offered to you. Business and entrepreneurship is a team sport, however you look at it. And in not restricting yourself to any individual and not saying, this person is, the one true being when it comes to business and I need to follow them completely. It's knowing, which people you can take
Yeah.
positive things from and which to take negative things from, but do take that help.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's two parts to this. One is where do you get your knowledge and advice and information from, and multiple sources absolutely makes sense. I think the role, if any of a coach is to help people find, make sure they are finding those things and not to be the. I absolutely don't believe we should be the font of knowledge, but we should be the identifier of knowledge that's required by challenging thoughts, and then the provision where relevant, but not necessarily from us. It's not what I know, it's what I may be able to signpost people. So completely agree with everything. And whether from any of the sources that you've gathered, do you find yourself using any favorite quotes or sayings about business or success?
We talked about the font or fountain of knowledge, and my wife probably is.
Brilliant.
Well, she probably like me to say that she is. She's
Absolutely.
she's a huge support, and a lot of things I've done
Brilliant.
in business I wouldn't be able to do without her. And
Wonderful.
one of the phrases, sayings that she uses is, "Your network is your net worth." And I know that when she does say that to people, they also agree that it's a really good one. And I think it is, and it comes back to this being networked and speaking to people, asking for help and accepting help. And it's that recognition that we do live in an ecosystem. And it's interesting because, again, sort of like pre-chat, we were talking about, there's lots of different businesses that you don't really realize they exist. And I mentioned that it's like a rock pool, and I'm from Scarborough, so let's say it's a rock pool in
Brilliant.
Scarborough.
Love it.
You lift up the little rock, and you've got all these little crabs and little different creatures that are happening there. You just never realised they existed,
No.
and yeah, it's that vibrancy of different businesses, different founders, different individuals, and if you can meet them, learn about them, that ecosystem really does exist. So that idea of your network, the people that you're connected to, ultimately is your worth. And what I like about worth is it's not actually putting a financial figure on it. It's much more bigger and
Yes.
intangible, but also perhaps tangible too.
Yep. Great. But I love that. I do love that saying it because and the beauty of a network, as we build it, is it stays with us, irrespective of what's
Mhm.
happening in our business or not. And it's something that most people, I believe, or many people anyway, don't
Mhm.
really get the value from it. Don't
Mhm.
actively say, well, who in my network can help me? Whether it's
Yeah,
information or knowledge or a contact, it's as you said earlier, asking for help. And if we ask
yeah.
for help from our network of trusted people, however big that is, we'll probably get something. So no, absolutely. And on the learning phase, do you have any favorite books or podcasts or on business or success that you listen to regularly? I'm getting you get a lot from lots of different things. So
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of an insight into my mind. I I don't, and I don't have a single place where I go for things either.
cool,
It's kind
cool.
of for me, and I do talk about it quite often, about this kind of like shiny object syndrome as something to try to avoid. But I am probably the biggest proponent of actually being there myself. So I mean, I consume a lot in terms of media, always on LinkedIn. I do listen to podcasts, but I tend to either listen to them very quickly or just like listen to snippets that I kind of like
Yep,
want to get in some information out of. That is good and it is bad as well. So it's good to get lots of information from places, and it's kind of bad from my perspective because it can feel a little bit overwhelming sometimes. But the point is to read. I mean, I've got loads of books in the back, and I can't say that I've read every single one cover to
yep.
cover, but I read the bits in them that I'm interested in reading.
Yes.
Is do read, do listen to podcasts, and do speak to people and continue your like learning. But I guess from my perspective, it's not get stuck on one place because it's like a broken record player. You just get
100%
the,
agree.
and I guess it's the academic side as well. There's that bias of just always reading and looking at the
Yes.
same thing.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's, get information from as many sources as you can and collate it based on what's most valuable to us as individuals.
Mm.
Because,
And
go on.
sorry, it just links me back to when you were asking for around the quotes and sayings. So I do have a personal one that I don't tend to repeat in public, but I do say to myself, and that is, if I can see further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. I think it's Isaac Newton, and that for me goes back to the whole thing around lots of different places, lots of different people. And if you sat and reflected and looked back, you could see all those different small examples of where you've grown as an individual or your business has grown, really because you've been standing on, other people's,
Yeah,
not just successes, but their experiences. And that's why I think the kind of phrase about standing on the shoulders of giants is linking back to everything that I am now, everything that I've become in business and in personal life has been as a result of other people's experiences.
brilliant. Brilliant. Love it. And
Not too philosophical.
well, it's wonderful. And I didn't know that was I mean, I wasn't aware that goes all the way back to Isaac Newton. I have heard that quote before, but I didn't know it goes all the way back. So wonderful. And so lastly on the learning front, what have you learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, would you say?
Yeah. So To be really, I guess, open, I have realised that I have struggled a lot, especially when I was younger, and even now. And now I have the benefit of shining a light and being able to realise some of my, characteristics that I'm not as good at. And one of those things comes to, as we've spoken about, um, always being active, always looking for new things. And sometimes that means forgetting sometimes that means being slightly disorganized. And in business, those skills are required, right? You've got to submit your tax return on time. You've got all these different things that you kind of like have to do. And when I was just starting, and when I started my business and in my life as well, I used to always beat myself up about not being able to do some of these things, like not always remembering deadlines, not always being as organized as I want, being really excited about something and putting all my effort and energy into something, and then the next week struggling to find that same energy and enthusiasm towards that subject.
Mm.
And I always used to think it was something that was, something that I could improve, and yes, it can be improved, or something that was wrong with me. And I used to really beat myself up over it. Now I've figured that there's some really big things in business and in my business that I'm really, really good at.
Yeah.
Solving really complex problems, introducing technology into those problems, having those relationships and having that vision. The organization side and the keeping myself to task, really, really struggle with. And one of the best decisions that I made a few years ago is to engage an operations person,
Hang on.
on a weekly basis, in daily basis sometimes, to just offload what's in my mind, keep it structured on something like a project management system. And we use Asana, but there's many. Um, has really, really helped me to grow in the business
Brilliant.
and not get, as I say to other people, stuck in the weeds. And I use automation myself now, and I think for other marketers, and it's not something that I really would describe myself as, because I wouldn't, and probably a different conversation to explore that as well. But I find a lot of marketers that I work with are neurodivergent, and I think having the processes and the automation in place can really help them and can really make a difference for them by taking away some of that manual work that can be quite difficult, so they can focus on that high intensive human thinking work.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. I often do with individuals and businesses, is do the idea of assets and liabilities. So a lot of people see,
Mhm.
things like being organized as a liability. Yes, absolutely. If you don't have organization in the business, or certain times organization can be a challenge. But what is typically the asset of not
Mhm.
not necessarily not being organized, but not needing organization? That typically the asset is something around creativity, because
Yeah,
it's very difficult to be creative when you're very, very structured. So
yeah,
it's turning it, turning it on its head and saying, it's great that I'm not, because it means I can do this.
yeah,
And I think the other part to that is I completely agree. Let's not try and strengthen let's play to our strengths rather than try and improve our weaknesses.
mhm. Yeah.
Accept it, how can the business be organized? Well, let's get an organized person into the business.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, well, exactly. It's a team. It's a team sport.
it, a colleague of mine actually did a really good graphical representation of strengths and weaknesses. So
Mhm.
she said, if you, I don't forgive me, it's not very different to, but if you draw a line here and you've got some strengths here and you've got some weaknesses here, go below the line, if you like, if the line is
Mhm.
average. And she said, if you try and sort a weakness out and improve it, the best you'll probably be is average.
Mhm.
But if you focus on playing to your strengths, if you increase a strength, you could become world class. And it really hit me. And that's the point, isn't it? Why, the value of improving something you're already good at is way
Mhm.
more valuable than just trying to be better at something.
Yeah, I did some facilitation training, and there's a company called Shadow Suits, and part of what they have is like a deck of cards, and their argument is the opposite of a strength is another strength. So let's say, for example, you're
Sure.
really optimistic, and you'll go with like anyone's decisions and things, and people see you as somebody that's like, oh yeah, I want to work with them on the team because they're really like positive and motivated and will take it somewhere. And let's say, for example, the opposite of that is somebody who's quite pessimistic and will always like pull holes in things. Actually, that's a really valuable person to have on your team. So it's, and again, understanding that the opposite of a strength is sometimes a strength. And from my perspective, it's kind of similar. I love running with things and having that motivation and energy behind it. And I do try to always see the positive side in something.
Yep.
But the opposite of that, I'd love to have them work on my team. I need more of that. I need more people that
Yeah.
like put holes in things, do that like organization side. I need those people to work with me.
Brilliant. Love it. So Devon, looking forward now, what does the future look like for you and Brainstorm Club, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to face challenges in no small part because this is a founder-led business. There's kind of like no getting away from that. I do also kind of want to be the face of the business as well, and I have to, navigate what that means too. But no doubt, I need to grow the team, and I have plans very very shortly to grow that team.
Brilliant.
As I'm taking on more work, I do need more capacity for things like building out the automations and the technology side because I want to stay having those conversations, those top level conversations with people to help them to be recognizing their business. I think the automations and that side of things, can be something that can be process driven and with the right, because again, from my side, I love teaching and I love showing people how to do things. In my business, it's all about building up those processes internally to deliver that work, but also having really robust training and coaching and mentoring alongside that to enable them to do it. So I'm kind of like I'm ready. I've spent all of these years, 2012 registering the business, and before that when I was in school, I've kind of been growing and refining myself and the business for this point. And now it's like, yeah, was it like the gasoline on the fire, the gas on the fire? I'm ready to grow this,
Brilliant.
speak to as many people as possible. So those growing pains will come in hiring, in building out those processes. But hey, I'm like super excited for this like next step of my journey.
Wonderful. Absolutely brilliant. The excitement and passion comes across
Good.
wonderfully. Super. And I'm keen to know what you say to anyone that's thinking of going to business right now.
Yeah, I would say if you're thinking of going into the business and it's something that an idea that you've had yourself, I'm going to be I, just don't. Hey, that's a good bit. Just don't. And so I'm going to caveat that with, as I've mentioned, it's a team sport and you need people around you. The first thing that I'd be doing if I had a business idea would be to get together that team of people that's going to help to shape
Great.
that idea and take it forwards and not to do it yourself. So if you are considering to start your own business and it's something that you're just doing by yourself at the moment, I would first try to put that team together, even if it's only a loose team of people who are going to help you. Because I think going into business by yourself, two things. One thing, yes, you will make, and there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, but you will make a lot of those mistakes
Yeah.
very early on. And
Yeah.
that can be difficult and it can put you off. And second of all, it is super lonely. It is very lonely if you don't have that group of people
Yeah.
around you.
Great.
And I think not many people think about that psychological side of starting a business without having those groups of people around you. So same thing, network, ask for help, accept help when it's offered to you, and build that ecosystem, build that team.
Brilliant. Great advice there. And is there anything looking back, if you started your business again, is there anything significant you do differently, do you think?
I think it'd be the same advice that I've just kind of given throughout this, which would be um, make decisions, make hard decisions as early as possible. I think that would definitely would have helped. Um, Accept help, I think. So one of the reasons why I feel like I've grown so much in the past year is I had some mentoring through the British Library. That was really helpful and really useful. Just having that person to, as you say, just to challenge, and I found that really useful. So accepting help, especially when it comes to like grants and accelerators and
Yeah.
business groups and networking, just accept the help. You may feel like you're going to be amazing if you do all these things by yourself. It's not true. Just accept that help. And I guess from my personal perspective, it's give yourself a break. I think one of the reasons why I've got to where I have got to is because I've pushed myself really, really hard. And
Mm.
actually, when I was a teenager, I purposefully said to myself, for better or for worse, and I'm just 30 now, I was 30 in November. I said to myself in my 20s, I was going to burn the candle on both ends. I was going to do lots. I did the masters. I've helped other businesses. I've developed my own business. It has been tiring. It is tiring, and that has come at the downside of perhaps my own social like life outside of work.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, I just say just give myself a bit of a break. Don't beat myself up, especially around the organization side, and just make sure that you enjoy the experience. And this is something that I do for my own clients and the people that I meet as well. I think business should be fun. And if it's not fun, then I'd really question why you're doing it. Because if it is just about the money, and lots of businesses do exist for the money, I'm not denying that. It's not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of Yorkshire tea anyway. Find some fun in it and find those parts in the business that are enjoyable and maximize them as much as possible.
I completely agree. I don't see there is no point. We spend at least a third of our life in a business, in our job or in business, wherever we are. So why wouldn't we make sure it's fun?
Yeah,
Because
and there's another saying against a personal one that I don't really say to others, and that is, in life, I want to have a net positive benefit to society,
oh
and and perhaps it comes from me doing a lot of youth work when I was younger and working with young people and seeing a lot of those disadvantages, and why I like working with young marketers now, particularly. But in business and in life, I want to just give back more than I take. Full stop. I want to not just money, but in culture and society. I just want to give back more than I take. If there's one thing when I die, and I will die, is to say yes, I gave back more than I took from the world.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, look, Devon, it's been fascinating talking to you today, and lots of really f fabulous advice. And for anyone that's watching right now that would like to get in touch with you or Brainstorm Club, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, and thank you for the prompt as well for getting people to speak to me. So I offer a discovery call completely free. Do a quick map of your current processes, and I'll give you some advice on which parts of those can be automated. At the end of that call, if we can work together, I'll automate the first thing for free for you. Simple as what to say about no brainers. So on our website, there's a free trial button. You can book that discovery call without even having to speak to me. You can just book it straight away. And yeah, let's get that first automation done for you so you can start to reap the benefits.
Perfect. Well, Devon, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months, just see next phase of what you're
Please
doing. But
do. Yes.
but for now, thank you so much.
Thank you.